Hello and welcome back to Jack Knives Reviews. I'm of course your host, Jack Knives, and would you look at the time? It's A24 time. Let's see if we're all just hearing things in the new experimental horror movie, Undertone. Evie Babick is a young woman living with her comatose mother who she takes care of. She and her friend Justin run a horror podcast called The Undertone, where they make reports on supernatural occurrence, with Evie being the contrarian, believing they are all elaborate hoaxes. Justin gets sent a string of files with weird audio, which they decide to play on air. This sets up a chain of events where Evie, isolated, starts to experience auditory happenings and a seemingly eerie presence that makes her question what is really going on. I've said repeatedly that I appreciate when filmmakers do something from a different perspective, doing it in a way that's more akin to an experimentation, but it's not necessarily that they're able to do the experimentation. It's always about the execution. Famously, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of all of his work, David Lynch was known for doing such film, doing things outside the conventional norms of storytelling and tackling subjects in a different way and perspective. Whole new subgenre of different films. Cronenberg also famously did these things. Now, I'm not saying this movie is any way, shape, or form comparative to a Cronenberg or Lynch. Hell, I wouldn't even compare it to some other A24 movies. The reason I bring these things up is that these could be ways to approach a thing like Undertone. A movie that focuses on the hearing things rather than the seeing things. Messing with the auditory senses is something that is not necessarily new, something that hasn't really been executed in the modern day in filmmaking. When I heard that there was a movie that was going to focus more on using sound, trying to get under your skin in that way, I was honestly intrigued, to say the least. I was expecting something akin to, much like in the movie, a podcast. A podcast kind of gone off the rails, as it were. And in some ways, yes, that is what you get. However, unfortunately, film is a visual medium. It is a medium that needs to see rather than heard. While I do appreciate many of the things in which it does execute fairly decently, and what I mean by that is the effects, using the surrounding, and also, of course, the concept, actually pretty well constructed. The problem with this is, it felt like a movie that was made during quarantine. Limited resources, limited backing, limited casting. It truly felt like a movie that was made during the quarantine, but it wasn't. And I think that's kind of part of the problem. There were things where I, as a person who loves film and a person who also is appreciative of independent filmmaking, hence why I have A24 time, can understand where you can actually step in and do stuff. But this movie never did that. It never actually did anything. And to me, that is the most egregious sin of all. I can appreciate a movie that does something risque, or I can appreciate a movie that tries new filming techniques, or tries to do something that no one had done before, or even fails at something in a spectacular way that becomes something no one would expect. Or maybe they just get lucky. What I can't settle for is setting up the dominoes and never pushing them over. That's what this movie felt like. All of the blocks were there. But the filmmakers, for whatever reason, were too afraid to topple them over. The setup, the concept, even Mina Kiri, to her credit, as a phenomenal actress as she is, doing what she can with her face, with her expressions, with her mannerisms. She had nothing to work with. It truly felt like pure cowardice as far as filmmaking. And I think it irritates me so. There was a movie I reviewed years ago. You may have heard of it, called Skinamarink, that a lot of people may or may not have enjoyed. And it's understandable why. It's from the perspective of a child. The filming is very, very, very nightmare-like. And it feels like a movie that only a select group of people would enjoy. What it did as far as actually trying is to be commended. I don't even remember what I gave it as a rating. To say that it wasn't actually a movie I didn't think about on occasion, it is a movie that I think about when I think about experimentation in film. Now, do I necessarily think it's a gold standard? Do I think it's amazing? No. But do I think it's actually worth giving its dues? Yes. Undertone is unfortunately a movie that, while on paper could have been executed properly, could have actually pushed something, anything, it does instead nothing. Which, as I have stated before, there are multiple cardinal sins in filmmaking. But in my humble opinion, as a critic, the number one sin in film, it's making an unwatchable movie. It is making a movie that is so bland, so boring, or so egregious for something, you just can't even watch it. Undertone, unfortunately, falls into that category. You sit there thinking, much like the Talking Heads song, how did I get here? And it gives you no payoff. It's truly almost remarkable how bland it is. And to me, that's just as bad as making an awful movie. I give Undertone 1 out of 5. Have you seen Undertone? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to stab that subscribe button and slice that like button, and I'll see you next time.